All right, it's Friday in Athens, day before our game. That means we're at Red Zone downtown on Clayton Street. We've got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. I'm going to get you to 4 o'clock here in Athens as the crowds come rolling in from all parts of the state in the southeast. Look, Georgia, a massive favorite over Mississippi State, and we think that's asking a lot, but that's us. A 34-point line, that's a tremendous amount of expectation for a team that's playing well but not playing as well as you'd like. But again, we're downtown on Clayton. It was actually not that bad for me to get down here today. I thought it would be worse. For those of you coming from Atlanta, maybe not as easy. But Mississippi State's going to have a challenging day on Saturday. I think this is going to be one of the best weekends of college football that you've got. Now, the bad news for Georgia folks is this game's at 4:15, something like that. So you won't be able to watch the afternoon game, which is I can't remember the afternoon game, but I know Alabama, South Carolina is the kickoff, and then you get to roll into at night Ole Miss, LSU, and then you've got, of course, the big game on Fox, which would be Oregon hosting Ohio State. But this is a fun, and the Gators and Vols are playing on Saturday night. But I think there's still a lot to learn and get used to and understand about this Georgia team. Where are they? How is this team going to play against Mississippi State, a team that pushed Texas quite hard over the weekend that Georgia played Alabama? The Horns are playing Oklahoma and Dallas this coming week for the Red River Rivalry. First time the SEC will be the league on the logo in the middle of the field. This is going to be a tough back-to-back for Texas. And, but Georgia just played Alabama and Auburn in back-to-back weeks. I mean, part of me is like, hey, this is what it's like to play in the SEC. It's a challenging thing. But we're going to see how Georgia gets going. I think the run game is we're at an important moment here with Georgia. You start talking about the first game against Clemson. They ran pretty well against Clemson. It was not unbelievable, but Clemson's defense is pretty legitimate. I mean, I think they're that good to me. I talked about that in the summer, and I think that they've shown, generally speaking, defensively, that Clemson is a pretty good team. It's a pretty good team, generally speaking, but defensively they're really good. Kentucky, probably one of the best defenses in the country. Georgia did not play well in that game offensively, and I think people just are wanting to see total blowouts and all this stuff. It's challenging to do that, man. It's challenging in this league to come in and stomp people, but I think the one thing to watch for this week, is Georgia going to be able to come in and run the ball on a team that they really should. And Mississippi State's defense is not good at all, and Texas struggled. Texas struggled in that game with State. They were winning 14-6 at the end of the third quarter. Right before the end of the third quarter. So it's they had a hard time, and that was at home. So then they kind of just exploded on State at the end of the game, scoring 3 touchdowns in the second half. While State only scored 1. So State hung in there, but boy, they're just not a good team, and I think that shouldn't be forgotten in the grand scheme of things. Is Mississippi State again, and just against regular Power 5 teams, they lost to Arizona State on the road 30-23. They lost at home. You cannot lose at home to Toledo, and they did. They didn't just lose at home; they lost 41-17. And then, of course, the Gators came down there and smashed them 45-28 before they went to Texas and kind of hung in there. Now they had an off week. They've had an off week before coming to Athens to play the Dogs, and we'll just see how they perform. They're a high tempo, throw the ball down the field stuff. But they've had such a hard time. But that style has had a hard time against Kirby and company. through the years. But again, thanks for watching us. We're downtown at Red Zone. It's filling in. I did not find the traffic to be nuts. So if you're in Atlanta right now and you're coming over, if you're in Gwinnett and you're coming over, if you're in Greensboro, or maybe you are taking a break from the storm cleanup in East Georgia and Augusta and you're coming over, take your time getting here. Red Zone will be open until 6. Of course, they'll be open tomorrow from. Hey, Mindy, are y'all doing 9 o'clock? Are y'all doing 9 o'clock tomorrow or 10? What time? No. What time are y'all doing tomorrow? Opening. 10
to 5.
10 to 5. So they will be, if you want to be a straggler to the game, that's fine. They'll be here during the beginning of that game. Don't try to come here in the second quarter and think things are going to be open, because they won't be. So.
I thought you were talking about Sunday. Oh, my bad.
So let me correct myself.
Here at 9.
So, yeah, let me check that. 9 to about kickoff. So hustle on down here. You have plenty of time to shop. Got a slew of things, several books you can grab. This is right in front of me. You can grab Dog Instruction, Double Dogs you see behind me. There's some great crate weighing. It's not too early to buy for Christmas. This is sort of stuff that you read to your children. Got some Rubik's Cubes. Are those Rubik's Cubes? Yes, I think so. So all sorts of stuff, all sorts of gear. I tell you what, man, it's cold here in Athens. So sweatshirt weather has come up, but it's easy to get here on Clayton Street, and they've been great partners with us for a long time now. So this is the place. You don't want to go down to the bookstore. The bookstore's a disaster. Let me see that for a second. This is really cool. When I was a child, this would be something that I would play with. They have this here. These are the football guys, and this would be an outstanding Christmas or birthday gift. They've got this. It looks like red and black players so that you can scrimmage or just pretend you're playing someone else. I mean, whatever. But that would be a great gift for a child. I got all sorts of stuff like that here. Football guys. Let's go. I was talking to somebody a minute ago on the way in about, and we're going to go to volleyball tonight, by the way. It's going to be 10,000 people at that event for Georgia's playing South Carolina. And they were asking me, kind of where I was at with Georgia right now. And I said, I feel like they can win the national championship, but they're not playing like it. Which I think is an accurate way of putting it. I think that they have the capability to do. We're just so long. We're not where we're going to be as a college footballdom. It's going to take time to get back, this playoff's going to take a long time. We got 10 more games probably for Georgia, and that's a long time to play. So, guys like, Jared Wilson will probably be back the starting center this week, probably. I don't know if he'll start. And you've got guys like Tate Ratledge, Smile Munden. These are starting players that didn't play last week against Auburn, and you still beat them by 18 points. You need health. I don't know what Kobe Young's status is moving forward, so that's a good question too. But you need health, and I bet if Georgia gets up in this game, immediately people will be, by halftime, because I know how Georgia folks are, they'll just be like, well, are we going to beat Texas or not? No, that's the game I skipped. So while Georgia's playing state, you're going to have Texas, Oklahoma, which is a great college football game. Tomorrow in the SEC, you have 3 outstanding rivalries in college football, and they are all under the Southeastern Conference banner. You have, I'll start with LSU Ole Miss at night at Death Valley. That's going to be a challenging game for Ole Miss. They're favored to win that game. And then, at night opposite that are going to be the Gators and Vols playing at Neyland, a game that is really meaningful to both schools, perhaps not in a way that it once was, because they're not divisional rivals anymore. But that is a huge moment in the SEC calendar when Tennessee and the Gators play. And then you have, arguably the third or fourth biggest rivalry now in the league, which would be Texas and Oklahoma, playing at 3:30. So it is a outstanding day of television, and Georgia playing on the SEC network. They're not going to play on ABC every single week. They might from here on out, but they're not going to play on ABC every single week. We know that they're going to play in prime time against the Horns next week in Austin. We know they get a week off, and then they'll play the Gators. I can assure you that ABC will be putting Ole Miss, Georgia, as well as Ole Miss, Texas, Tennessee, Georgia. Those games will all be on ABC. Georgia is too big of a draw to waste on ESPN. So, and then of course you've got the Tech game on ABC that Black Friday. So this is great programming. If you love college football like some of us do, it's going to be outstanding to watch. But there will be much to learn. And in Sanford Stadium on Saturday, you're talking about a program that, they've got a loss, right, on the last play of the game to a team that turned out not to hold the number one ranking. So they got lost to, Alabama, and then you've got Alabama turning themselves a week later against Vanderbilt in Nashville. This league, we got a long way to go. You have one undefeated team, which is Texas. They may or may not be undefeated by, 27 hours from now. We don't know. They may or may not be undefeated a week and 72 hours or 27 hours from now. We don't know. Well, it'd be longer than that. A week and a day from today. That's going to be the first time Georgia goes into that game. They'll be an underdog in that game. That'll be the first time since 2020 that they were an underdog in a game. It's just not become a common thing. And one thing I want to see as we head into this kind of weird stretch with Georgia playing state and then on the road, they're going to be a 5-touchdown favorite over Mississippi State. And they're going to go on the road to Texas and be like a 1.5 or 2.5 point dog. Can Kirby take a team that is not the better team, allegedly, and win? He's not had a lot of opportunity to do that in his career. When you look at the numbers in terms of, and I keep this because I'm a sociopath, I know that, but it's my sociopathic nature. It's not yours. You don't have to worry about it. When you take a look at, statistically speaking, where you're at when you play as a favorite or an underdog, Georgia has been the favorite under Kirby Smart, I would say 85% of the time. I might be wrong with that, but I want to tell you exactly what it is in a second here. They have been the notable favorite in every game but, let's see, they have been favored in all of the games that they have played, with the exception of, this will be the 10th time. That's it. This will be the 10th time that they're underdogs. Several of those games was in 2016. So I'm going to go through the games real quick where they've been underdogs. And some of these didn't make sense at the time, just to be honest with you. So they were a significant, what I call a significant underdog to Alabama in the SEC championship game in 2018. That was noticeably incorrect at the time. They were a 12-point dog in that game, which was insane. So that's the largest point spread difference that they've had against them. They were a 10-point dog to Auburn at home and won that game. They were a 7-point dog to LSU in 2019 at the SEC championship game and lost that game. Here we're coming to the games that I'm talking about here. In 2016, they were a 7-point dog to Ole Miss, got blown out. In 2016, they were a 3.5-point dog to Tennessee, lost on the last play of the game. So 2 of the 9 that they have been underdogs in. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Good to see you.
It was in 2016. So 20-ish% of the times they've been dogs have been then. And when you look at, they were a dog to Clemson in 21. That did not make sense to me personally. I did not get that. But they won that game. So where they were dogs and won, 2 of the 3 were not in Athens. So they were dogs against Auburn in 16. In Athens, they won against number 8 Auburn. They were dogs to number 4 Clemson, or number 3 Clemson. They were a 3-point dog to Clemson in Charlotte. They were 5-point dogs to Notre Dame on the road when they won that game, which sort of kick-started everything. Every other game that they've played, they have been favored. Now, the complete opposite of that is this week. where they are. I'm just going to call them a 34-point favorite because the line's kind of dancing around like Mindy's feet right now. The line is dancing slightly around 33 to 34 to 35. So it's in that universe. That is really high. So that is not the largest they've ever had against an SEC opponent. That would have been against Missouri in 21. They did not cover that line. But they were to be a 34.5-point favorite. That's just insane to me. It's asking a lot of someone to win a contest by 5 touchdowns. It's hard to score 5 touchdowns, just to be honest. So it is, and Georgia's won all those games straight up. I'm just saying it's a significant ask. So that's why I picked State. I think everybody did in our group, which is like the sign to pick Georgia. But this is going to be this week of complete. This 7 days of complete unevenness with expectations of how you play against the foe that you have is going to be a curious moment in Kirby Smart world. Because if the standard's a standard and whoever you play is who you play, or you don't look at the scoreboard and all this, if that's always the case, then this 2 weeks you should see essentially similar performances. Now, there's always variables that change, right? I mean, you're not playing Texas this week. You're not playing in Sanford next week. So things change over time. And that's going to be the tricky part. But what I would like to see is Georgia's nearly not tried to attack on the ground. They did with Clemson a little bit. No, not a little bit. They did with Clemson. They did with Auburn. But the 3 games in between, they just straight up could not run against Kentucky. The Tennessee Tech game, they kind of got in and out. And then you talk about the Alabama game. It was too late to throw it. They were just throwing it because it was too late to run it. So, and then they ran okay against Alabama, but it sure looks like they could have run for a lot against Alabama, judging from what we saw with the Vanderbilt game this past time. Alabama's got some issues that are not easily correctable. You're not going to get up 28-0 in every single game, nor are you going to get down like that. And there are some flashing red signs at Alabama right now about, you've given up at least 34 points in 2 SEC games. They've not done that in a season since 2021. This is the first 2 games. Like if Georgia, I'm going to tell you right now, I know the Georgia folks really well. I know I've done this for 24 years. I know the Georgia world. If Georgia was giving up 34 points in back-to-back games, people would be full-blown panicking. Like serious panicking, going nuts on social media. It would be a whole thing. And that's what Alabama's dealing with. The difference is they went from the highs of beating Georgia to the lows of losing to Vanderbilt. That should almost never happen. Alabama losing to Vanderbilt. They lost to them as the number 1 team in the country. It's just shocking. I've seen Georgia lose to Vanderbilt in person once, and that shouldn't have happened then. That was not a good Georgia team, for the record. And they got hosed on a call. That it didn't help them at the close of that game. They would have been off the field on 3rd down. Ray, oh my gosh, from Thomasville. Ray was called for a personal. It was just ridiculous. And then Vanderbilt, instead of Georgia getting the ball back with about 6 or 8 minutes left, Vanderbilt got the ball and continued and went on down and scored. It happens that you lose on the road to Vanderbilt, but it just should not as the number 1 team. So Alabama's got their own issues to deal with. We saw this past week. Tennessee has gone from scoring about 1 million on everybody to regressing to the mean of playing normal Southeastern Conference football, where you're not just putting the ball in the end zone every drive. Same thing, Ole Miss, the same ball game. I do think that Ole Miss played pretty well at Carolina. I thought Carolina gave them more difficulty. They did not. South Carolina, Georgia's not dealing with South Carolina. I don't know what to make of South Carolina yet either. Obviously, they can play with people the way they play with LSU, but they did not play well against Ole Miss necessarily, and they did not play. But they did play well against. They got those turners against Kentucky. If Kentucky doesn't turn the ball over against South Carolina, they're ranked right now. They're probably So who is going to be the most consistent football team this year? That's the question. Like if Georgia goes tomorrow, it's 2:00 right now. So if Georgia tomorrow is getting like they're kind of doing their stuff tomorrow, and like they're getting ready to play the game, if they go tomorrow and win the game 38-10, people will be like, well, they didn't cover spread. I'm like, hey man, what do you want right now? Do you want total destruction? I mean, Ohio State was beating Iowa 7-0 at the half last week. Texas was leading these guys 13-7 until the last play of the third quarter. You don't think they were sweating that? Of course they were sweating that. So, who is going to be the most consistent team? I mean, Texas should trash Michigan. Michigan's not a good team. I mean, they're fine, but they're not. It's nothing to be like. SC should have beaten Michigan up there. I don't know how they lost that game. And Lincoln Riley just did what he does. I guess I don't know. There's no shot they should have lost that game. They were the better team, and they lost. I mean, you don't want to get in the habit of doing that a lot. But coaches do. Hey, we're downtown in Athens. You can come shop. It's easy to park. I mean, just being straight up with you. There's a lot of places to come to visit when you're downtown in Athens. I realize, folks that watch this, not everybody's from downtown. Oh, I'll sign books. Yeah, well, and one thing, of course. Yeah, we've got books here, but the reason to come here is because if you've got Christmas shopping to do, you come down to Red Zone. Honestly, the insanity of the bookstore, you don't want any part of that. I've dealt with that on Fridays. You don't want that. You come down here, you park, you get. If you want Chick-fil-A, right down the street. If you want, Euro Wrap, which we go to sometimes. If you want a cookie, you go grab that. You eat it, and then you come here. You eat it. You do not come in with. You don't come in with food. You don't come in with food or drinks. Anyway, that's an inside joke. And you come here and you just check it out. So bumper stickers. The children's section is awesome. I'm not gonna lie. It's got all sorts of gear that expectant fathers and mothers should be checking out. Really cool, just standard, Georgia sweatshirts that you will wear these for the rest of your life. You see those? All four of those, you will have those the rest of your life. Those are the basic 1980s, what I would call 1980s. You can get it in black or red. It's like Georgia's just got classic colors that you can always depend on, and you can. Tomorrow's going to be a little bit warm, not the whole day. So the sweatshirt is sweatshirt season. Now they're not. You don't just have to come downtown. You can go to Red Zone online. Just go to UGARedZone.com and check it out. They've got all sorts of gear for y'all. But I don't know. It's not crowded yet. But again, they'll be here from 9 until about a little bit after the first quarter starts. So get down here and check it out tomorrow. Everybody's looking at the hockey jerseys. They're looking at but this old school stuff, man. You're gonna wear these sweatshirts for probably the rest of your life. You buy them. It's Champion. It's well made, good material. But we're gonna see who is the most consistent team in college football. My suspicion is we don't know that yet. Ohio State's been up and down. Obviously, Ole Miss. Who do you want it made out to?
My daughter, Lydia.
Lydia? All right, we got to spell it now. L-Y?
L-Y-D-I-A.
We've got someone coming in that's... Give me 1 second here. We've got someone coming in. Where'd you come in from?
Charlotte.
Okay, not that bad of a drive. How about it was 85, though?
6 hours.
6 hours, so longer than usual.
Yeah.
Yeah, the storms have been bad. East Georgia, obviously North Carolina. We got folks that come in from Florida a lot, but Charlotte should not take 4. It should take 4 hours. And it took 6.
It's rough. Well, the good news is the reason is a lot of people are going up in the mountains.
To go up to help.
And then coming back 85 to refurbish. So
Check that on something. Maybe on that paper there. Just make sure it's good.
So someone's coming in from Charlotte here. Is there anything you wanted to say besides Go Dogs?
yeah, just to Lydia. L-Y-D-I-A.
L-Y-D-I-A.
And she's class of 2025.
Look at that. she excited?
Oh yeah, she is. She's down at Terry, so she's doing fine.
She's going to be donating lots of money soon, I guess. Well, thanks for coming in, and let's see here. So she just started.
No, she's a senior.
She's 25. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
this is her last season.
Right? So she's had a heck of a run.
She has, and the question is Lydia has Lydia seen her last national championship or not? That's the question that we're all asking ourselves. Do you think so?
No.
Oh, he's hopeful.
Kirby's got to get his handle on the team, and they got to find some leadership in the locker room.
Thanks for coming by. I think his what he said there, a lot of people echo that, to be honest with you. There's a lot of folks that are disappointed with what's happened. Thank you for coming down from Charlotte. There has been a lot of, just silliness, mistakes. It's not mistakes, it's just bad decisions that have been made. Thank you.
Yeah, see you, Dan.
All right, my man. Bad decisions that have been made by guys, and it takes the focus off of what should be a spectacular season. I don't need to lecture y'all, but there are, when you have a college football team like everybody watching this does, you have no control over what happens. You can only be happy or sad with results, and it gets frustrating for people who really support programs to see guys in the programs make mistakes or make poor decisions consistently. And it is going to be about how long is this team going to let itself fester unnecessarily on off the field stuff. It's got to stop. But it's up to them. No amount of what are they doing is gonna. It's up to Kirby and them to handle that problem. And Kirby's been doing this for a long time. He doesn't need my advice, nor would I know necessarily what to say. But when in my time playing in college, guys held each other accountable as much as you could. Didn't mean guys didn't do dumb stuff. Guys did dumb stuff every Thursday, but it's time. I mean, we're in the middle of the season. It's time to just period. It doesn't matter when it is. You got to do smart stuff. But we're here at Red Zone downtown in Athens. And you only get so many fall days. There's only so many experiences in Athens in the fall at Sanford Stadium, an SEC football weekend. Georgia folks don't know how good they've got it. And I'm telling you right now, they don't know how good they've got it. That you have the ability to come to a place where you can eat, hang out, watch games, see live music. Athens is not at all like the rest of the league. Very few places have what Georgia's got. And so come down and take advantage of it. You can spend the day shopping, walking around, getting coffee, getting candy, cookies, stuff like that, what we would do when we were kids downtown. We spent our I grew up in Tucker, but my dad lived in Athens, and so we were here every weekend, and we would, downtown was our playground, so I know downtown quite well, and it's a wonderful place to come visit. And of course you could spill right into Old Campus, and I encourage everybody to do that and see what the university is really all about, because it's it's the first public institution in the United States of America of higher learning. That's really saying something. But we have entered a 2-week period here of Georgia having extremely high expectations this week in terms of the bettors, and then next week being a dog for the first time since going to Tuscaloosa in 2020, a Georgia team that was not that good, and proved it, I think, that night. Probably proved it at Kentucky a couple weeks after that. But that Alabama team, they were beating them in the third quarter. They were winning that game. That's the amazing thing. That we're going to have to see who is the most consistent team, who can really string together the most. Because it's okay to lose. You can lose. We've seen that. Everybody's losing, right? These past 2 weeks we've seen Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Missouri. Well, the SEC is only one. I mean, Big Ten play does not really start until this past weekend. So you had a lot of Indiana's and Illinois games that were kind of kicking around. Now we've just now started getting back to legitimate Big Ten play, and you've got SC, you got Penn State going to SC, you've got obviously the big game, which is Oregon and Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State should win that game. They're the better team. They have had a slight roller coaster of a season, but not anything that you wouldn't. I mean, they've been fine. Their defense is good for sure, but their offense has been jumpy at times, and that's not an ideal situation to be in. You want to be able to score as much as you can score. Good to see y'all. Thanks for coming in. And I think that's part of the, if you want to call it frustration, I don't know if it's frustration, but people want to see Georgia score a zillion points, and it's not been happening. Well, again, I always say this about Kentucky. Their defense is quite good. The offense is limited. It just is. But, when you're scoring at least 30 points a game, when you are only allowing 13 in every game but one, you're hanging in there pretty well. I mean, Georgia's had two anomalies in their season so far on both sides of the ball. One, the anomaly at Alabama for the defense, the anomaly at Kentucky for the offense, and it split. They won one of those games and they lost one. They could have won both. They could have lost both, but they split it, which is about right. But I think that again, this weekend is an important weekend in college football. It will set the table for here on out, and the dog. So just some inside baseball from me and what we do. So we go as fast as we can go at Dog Post after these games. Like, we're trying to get home so we can see. Specifically this weekend, we have 3 TVs up on the wall. The middle TV is almost always the big game, but sometimes we try to get. I have an antenna that we can still get the Atlanta stations out here in Athens. But like tonight, you're just boom right off the bat. You have great games. You have Utah and at Arizona State. Those teams are both 8. They're both 4-1. And the Big 12 is a mess. It's a disaster. It's hard to understand what's going on there. But then you just roll right into it. You got Carolina going to Alabama. What's that going to be like for Alabama? They just got beat on the road to Vanderbilt. You lose that game. That's an inexcusable game. Anything goes wrong for Alabama at the start of that game, people are going to panic. I know that fan base. I know how they are. They're ready to panic at any moment, let me tell you. So, there's that. And then you've got, at the same time, you've got Clemson going up to Wake. A Clemson team that I trust the defense. I don't trust the quarterback at all. And then Missouri, I don't know why Missouri's played at Massachusetts. And then you go straight into these. The 3:30 on is outstanding. You got Texas OU, ABC. It's going to be a great game. That's a great game no matter what, typically. And you got Penn State going out to SC. That should be curious. Stanford, Notre Dame, I don't really care, but, they're playing. And then, Georgia State is going to be at 4:15. Hopefully they're playing, hopefully we're going as fast as possible so that we can get home by the half of these big, these night games. But, the Gators and the Vols playing, that is just great entertainment. That's an outstanding, almost always an outstanding game every single time. And can Florida, I wouldn't say shock the world, can Florida come up there and beat the Vols? I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think Florida has been massively discounted, and Tennessee has just hit the choppy part of their season. The start of the season was Florida's choppy. Florida's at least sort of corrected some issues. They've won their last 2 games, probably 2 games that people weren't really certain that they would win. Okay, so they've lost to the Canes. They just certainly were just not close to the Canes. And they lost to A&M, a game that they were competitive in. It wasn't great, and they came down there. UCF was like flashing red light danger zone for Florida, and they smashed them. They beat them pretty good, and of course the game before that, they just rolled State. They just rolled State, which is probably why people are going to, kind of do apples to apples with this game and that game. Georgia doesn't need to be worrying about Florida. Florida will be there. And you got these night games which, we're kind of psychopaths. And again, I say this. It's our problem. We're happy to stay up until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning to watch these games because we have no we're it's our problem. We choose that. But tonight you've got a great triple header on, which is you got the Gators and the Vols, you got Ohio State and Oregon, and you got LSU and Ole Miss. That's probably in Dean Legge world. That is like the ideal Saturday night. Like just come in, the games are on. And the food has already been dealt with. We've got a brisket that we're dealing with. The food's already dealt with. We're trying to push out content as fast as we can. That's always challenging. But then you've got 3 home run games. Not like, I'll watch to see if it's close. These are great games. I mean, we may monitor Iowa State, West Virginia, just for the stupidity of it all. But probably not. I mean, those will be our games, and then we will be in heavy judgment of all these guys. You got 6 teams, 4 of them are in the top 10. That's what college football is giving you. Everybody talks about how it's getting ruined, dude. This is great. We need this. You think about how you don't get these matchups at Oregon and Ohio State. It's not in October. So again, we're downtown in at Red Zone here on Clayton Street. Come downtown and say hey. And then, of course, we're psychopaths. Like I said, Boise is ranked, and they're playing at Hawaii, and that's kicking off at 11 o'clock. So, I mean, if you know, you know. And we will, sadly, we will be up that late. Colorado's hosting Kansas State. So your late game is not the end of the world at all. I see the Big Ten Network has got Minnesota, UCLA. The late is not as great as it sort of sometimes can be, so we will have to book it home. And for you true degenerates, we've got Marshall and Georgia State, Georgia Southern, in a very tight game down there in Statesboro, allegedly tight. That's NC State's just falling off the cliff. But Georgia will play State this weekend. A loss here would be pretty hard to understand and explain. I just don't. I am highly skeptical that would happen. But listen to these. This week in the SEC, there's 2 sort of not great. But this is a great weekend in this league. You've got South Carolina trying to find its way. Trying. Maybe not, but trying. So Carolina goes over to Alabama. I have no idea why UMass is hosting Missouri. That game should never happen. That's bizarre to me. You should not go on the road, middle of the season, out of conference, and be a 4-touchdown favorite. But whatever. You got Texas OU. You got State coming to Athens. You got Florida, Tennessee. You got Ole Miss and LSU, which is a great rivalry. It doesn't have a name, but it's an outstanding, weird, don't get me started on those 2 states and their dysfunction. Is anyone more dysfunction? Is there more dysfunction than anywhere in Louisiana? I mean, Louisiana is just like full blown. And then you got Vandy at Kentucky. Vandy and Kentucky is a great, strange rivalry that no one knows about because no one pays attention to them. But they do not like each other. I can tell you that right now. And Vanderbilt's going to go in there. They've got a win over a top 5 team, which makes no sense and never happens, but they just happen. And then Kentucky's like, hey, we're pretty good. We think we're pretty good. Kentucky has a turnover loss game to South Carolina and a nail-biting loss to Georgia. They're 3-2. They are a 13-point favorite over Vanderbilt. So it's an exciting weekend. Now, are you going to see from Georgia more run game? Are you going to see, what's going to happen with Etienne? Is Trevor Etienne going to get kind of going and rolling a little bit more than he has been in the recent past? We've not had to see Georgia run the ball. This is a game where that should really be the case. This is a Georgia team that, again, they've not had to. When they have, it's been okay. But State, it's there. It is there. I mean, you don't have to wonder if you can run the ball against State. Let me give you some of these statistics. And Georgia, to some degree, it doesn't matter who they're playing. They should be able to run the ball. Because one thing Kirby was talking about after Auburn to us was, I know we can run it better. I know we can run it better. I mean, this State team is allowing 213 yards a game on the ground. That is a disaster. That is a disaster. You cannot be in this league and allow 200 yards rushing. I mean, that is a flashing red light problem. Real problem. I'm looking at the statistics here of, State is only in the top 50 in third down conversion for the offense and team passing efficiency. It's just not where, and net punting. It's just not where they're not where they need to be at all. I mean, the loss to Arizona State, I will punt on because, that's on the road out there in Phoenix. Okay. But 41-17 against Toledo is not okay. That is not an acceptable result. And then, they got rolled by the Gators 45-28. And so I wonder if here they are. They played 3 games at home. This is their third legitimate road game. But I wonder if they kind of ponied up for the Texas game, and that's kind of going to be that's what we're going to do, and that's it for them. I don't know. This is their last road game until for a while. But they go to Texas, Georgia, and Neyland before they go to Vaught Hemingway at Ole Miss. So that's a heck of a road schedule for State. I mean, that's tough. But for Georgia, they've got to they're not running the ball the way they should or could, and right now Georgia's only going for 132 yards a game. That's 95th in the country. That is not even close to good enough. That number needs to be way higher. They should certainly be in the top 50 running the ball. Now, again, I've given you explanations for that. Against Alabama, they just virtually didn't even try to run the ball. Against Clemson, it was fine, but Clemson's got a really exceptional defense. Kentucky has a really exceptional defense. They ran enough against Clemson to win. The Cincy Tech game, but against Auburn, they went for 140. It needs to be closer to 200. I mean, when Georgia runs for 200 yards, they win. That's it. Everybody does. So, now, you didn't have Etienne in the first game. You've not had Frazier play in some of these games. You're missing 2. This past week, you ran for 140 against Auburn, and you were missing 2 of your starters. So on the offensive line. So there are explanations. See, I don't use the word excuse. People do that when they get mad. I'm turning this around to make sure you're seeing these sweatshirts that they've got here. And again, if you're thinking about, hey, I just want to get a basic sweatshirt, you've got your old school. I mean, it's different colors, all of them. You can go, and this is a good thing with Georgia. You can go white, red, black, gray. You can do all these things. Everybody, but the black with the Bulldog, the silver, what I would call gray, silver, whatever. Go gray with the Bulldog, the white. That is a nice sweatshirt right there. And go ahead. You can go on through. Thank you for coming in. And then, the old school, what I call 1980s. Like that, those shirts right there, they came into sort of popularity in the 1980s, kind of the mid 1980s. That's the classic. I'm not sure what the term for that outline, that white outline. That is what it looked like downtown in the late 80s. Was that? It may be some of the early 90s. That is the classic look. So come on in, check them out. You don't think it's cold enough yet but I'm going to tell you right now, the next time Georgia plays a home game here, you're going to need a sweatshirt because that will be, that time of the year. This is Georgia will not play at home for another month. Think about that. Bless you. So that's where we're at in this thing is, Georgia didn't play a lot at home at the beginning of this season. They got a back-to-back now, and then they will have 3 games in a row during basically Thanksgiving. So the Ghouls and Goblins will come and go, and then you're going to be getting ready for the holiday season, and will be right upon us when we get back here. So you're going to need sweatshirts. Let me tell you that right now. I've not shown those. I'll show those in a second too, but. Who is going to be the most consistent team? Who's going to be the most consistent program? Let's just say you go and lose to Texas on the road. I think that's kind of irrelevant. It just makes, it would be great to win that game. I think if you win that game, you're in the playoff. There's nothing to talk about. Of course, I said that about when Alabama beat Georgia. I said, it just gets them in the playoff. They turn around and lose to Vanderbilt next week. That can't happen. How are you losing like that? is an unacceptable situation that they got themselves into, and now Alabama's in like, oh, we got to win mode. Like, we can't lose it. We can't slip up. You just slipped up. So, the good news for Georgia is their most challenging games have been away from Athens, and they will have the ability. We'll see what happens with the Rebels, but they may have the ability to play 4 top 10 teams away from home. So Clemson, Bama, Texas, Ole Miss. Those games could all be away from home. And for those of us that played college basketball, they understand that when you play at home, you have to defend. And when you go on the road, you're attacking. You have the ability to essentially score more points with the committee because you're playing on the road. And you have there's more opportunity there to get a better win. I guess is the way to put it. So that from here on out, that's what we're going to see is Georgia has a lot of opportunity. Now they got to defend too. They got to play against Tennessee. I know Kirby talks about hunting and all this stuff. That's his terminology, and I get that. But there are some real opportunities starting with 8 days from now. But you can't have that opportunity if you pull in Alabama and you lose to a team that just has no business beating you. That was an inexplicable loss for Alabama, and there will be a lot of, hand-wringing if they do not come out and play well against Carolina, which there's no certainty that you will because South Carolina has guys too. South Carolina has guys that are difficult enough to deal with. They have a very good pass rush. Pinning in Jalen Milroe might be challenging, or is going to be challenging for anyone. But man, I mean this stretch for Alabama, they should probably win all these games. I'm just saying, this is not an easy stretch. They home Carolina, away to Tennessee, which is going to be a straight-up knife fight because both those teams are in desperation mode right now. Tennessee losing that game to Arkansas, that was not ideal. You got Missouri, a team I thought could beat Alabama, but they look like trash now. I mean, they just the way they got stomped by A&M and the way Vanderbilt pushed them. No, and they got to go to Death Valley. I mean, does Alabama really survive all those games? I don't know, man. Not giving up 40 points. Or 34. They gave up the 34 to Georgia. They gave up 40 to Vanderbilt. Like, it can't happen. But, it just is. Hey, we're downtown at Red Zone on Clayton. If you're in campus and you're walking towards downtown, all you do is go up one block past the arch, come up, take a left, and we'll be in here talking about the dogs and shopping. I've highlighted a lot of stuff, but the sweatshirts are the thing. Just because it's that season, it's coming up. It's about to be soup season, so you're going to want to make sure you have all that. But check out their online presence. They've been such great partners for us for some time now. It's a locally owned business, just like Dog Post. No corporate situation here, so they're much the same the way that we are. Nobody's coming to rescue us, that's for sure. So come on down. They've got some SEC stuff that's new that I'm seeing just now. I've seen it, but and if you want just a traditional, University of Georgia apparel with the new logo on it, that they've got that here in white. They've got the national championship stuff in white. They've got all sorts of I've spotlighted the sweatshirts quite a bit, and this guy knows what he's doing because he's coming straight to the sweatshirts. I'm telling you, it's about to be that time of year, so make sure you're grabbing them. But if Georgia's not running it effectively tomorrow, and one thing we don't know is the status of Jared Wilson, the starting center. Is he going to be able to play the whole game? He's going to start. Drew Bobo, there's a reason he's not starting, but I have to say, when you're scoring over 30 and you're putting up 140 yards against against Auburn rushing it. That's okay. 200 would have been better, but 200 would have ended that game easily. I mean, here we are, just again with this stuff. Can you hit a big ball tomorrow? And State's going to be trying to do that, by the way. That is their offense. They are trying to hit big balls. It's hard to do that against Georgia. That's a challenging situation. It's tricky. It's hard to just reach back and throw a big ball when Mikael Williams is coming at you, or they just have very good pass rushers from Georgia. It's not unbelievable pass rushers, but very good pass rushers. Nazir has been doing very well. Ingram Dawkins has had a very good run. Jalen Walker. So the pass rush is there for Georgia. Can you as a quarterback stand back there and study the situation? Not for long. You have your period of time. So if you're trying to hit big balls, that's harder to pull off, because what you need for that is time. And then you have Jalen Walker or whoever's screaming down your neck. That becomes challenging. So that's the part for State that will be difficult. For Georgia, they're probably allowing too much in the run game. This is about a little bit more than last year. That is not ideal. So that will have to slow down, because if you really are talking about winning the national championship, you're going to be dealing against Ohio State. Ohio State has a legitimate, scary run game, and you can stop the run. You can just jam the line. But a lot of teams have quarterbacks that will make you pay for that. And we saw that, we've seen that with Carson Beck several times, where he just says, you know what, I don't care, we're just going. And so that's one thing that's kind of got to get a little bit better. But in terms of against the pass, Georgia's been exceptional this season. But with that too, I mean, K. Klubnik, not a good quarterback. Brock Vandegrift, not a great throwing quarterback. So that's the thing. Is some of this is sometimes just matchups. Some of this sometimes is situational. But you would like to see a decisive win in the run game tomorrow for Georgia. Something like 215 to 70 something. That would be a decisive win in the run game, and that's probably what it should be. There's some parts of Georgia that need to get going, and certainly I would say in the run game that has got to get rolling a little bit more. And it's there. That's the thing. It's there. Now, when you're missing 2 stars on the offensive line, when you are, ETN missing in the first game, and then Frazier has not played at times, you need all of your guys. But inevitably, this is football. I mean, you're taking someone my size and throwing them on the ground. Guys are going to get hurt. So you got to learn how to deal with people that get hurt. That's part of this sport, is dealing with injuries. It's just what it is. So I wonder if an Alabama receiver being out was the reason they lost to Vanderbilt last week, because that's all you ever hear from them is it's injuries is the reason they lose. So it's kind of exceptional to hear that excuse making. It's ridiculous, is what it is. Sometimes you just get beat. And they just got their ass whipped. We're downtown in Athens. We're at Red Zone. The crowd is becoming a little bit thicker. I will be here until 4 o'clock. They will be here until 6. Everybody's coming downtown, having fun, getting their food, partying, checking out all the places. Scott and Mindy have owned Red Zone for a long time. I'm trying to see what game that is. It looks like Georgia-Auburn from a week ago. There's all sorts of gear that you can get here. I've talked about a lot of the winter stuff, sweatshirts and so forth, but now I'm seeing hats, pennants, all sorts of. They have prints from both recent national championships. I think that's the Rose Bowl, although I cannot see. They have the red glow. As a person who shoots games, I'm very familiar with many of these images. I don't shoot like that, so that's me. But and they got some red coat stuff in here too. So make sure that you're checking all that out. This week too, Bulldogs battling breast cancer is something that's going on this week. Make sure, I talked about this earlier this week quite a bit. Make sure that you're checking out all the literature about that. We have shirts for sale here that all the proceeds go to helping out with that. My mother had breast cancer when I was younger, so I know what that's like. It's a very serious battle, for sure, and that's something that has been a focus here this week for the state game as well. I think Georgia will mention that. We'll see. And then there's the talk about, Kirby's, I would say, correct discussion. I wouldn't say he called fans out. Maybe he did. I don't really know the right way to put it. But as a person, so I've been on the field since 2001 was the first time I was on the field at the Music City Bowl. So I've been on the field for about a quarter century, and I've seen Georgia be a very difficult place to play. I've seen Georgia be a not so difficult place to play. Saturday, Georgia's not a very difficult place to play. I think there are a lot of reasons why. I think I would never have Auburn as my homecoming opponent again. That to me was a miscue by the administration. They just screwed that up. I would hope for better. The sun was pretty tough last week, just to be honest. I did not find it overwhelmingly hot. It was 82 degrees. It was unseasonably warm, but it's not hot. But the combination of the sun and the unseasonable warmness, I think that drained the crowd. And then, unfortunately, what Georgia's done to Auburn lately has been beat the rivalry out of that game. And in my lifetime, I've seen Auburn. That's a huge game for Georgia. It matters a lot. There's a lot of, cross-pollination, from Vince to Pat Dye. And your cousins or your dad may have gone to Auburn. There's all sorts of that. But lately, you have to think for the children who are in college now, the kids who are in college now, it's 2024, right? So some of those people do not have a memory of Auburn beating Georgia. They may remember it once, which was 17. They don't remember the 2010 game. They don't. The freshmen at Georgia were probably born in 06 or so, somewhere in that universe. They have witnessed in their lifetime Auburn beat Georgia twice. One was on a miracle. So that's just dismissed, right? For those of us who are a little bit older, I remember Auburn taking Georgia and beating them down and all this stuff. And the other thing is, too, that's problematic with Auburn. Thanks, man. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. The other thing about Auburn, too, is that the game is not in November anymore. Like, it's just another game. That's the bad part about moving the games and the bad part of the SEC doing what it's doing. But it's inevitable. There's nothing you can do about it. If you want to have Texas and Oklahoma and Missouri and Texas A&M, they don't ask me. I do not want Missouri. I have no use for them. But if you want to have a 16-team league, you're going to have to juggle some stuff. And they are. See, everybody's rolling in here now because it's the place to be. Again, bring the children. Come here, shop. Go get ice cream down the road. It's a great location. And it's not nuts yet. And again, they'll be open tomorrow from 9 o'clock until, they'll be open after kickoff, but you need to probably be in the store at kickoff and to really reasonably expect to do that. Yes, that was the Auburn game. So I think all of those things combined to, when I can talk easily to the person next to me while I'm on the field, that means it's not very loud. And that's what it was like last week. But all of those combinations at the same time made for a docile home crowd. And Kirby's a little older than me. He's a great older than me, but he's a little bit older than me. He has a December birthday, I have a June. So I went young. I went into Tucker young. So we remember very well how big a deal that game is and was. People that are 30 and younger, they don't know Auburn. They have no idea what that game's like. And so they don't care. It's not they don't care. If they cared, they'd be there after the half. But they're not. They don't care. And it's their prerogative. It's their ticket. And they can do what they want. Now, will it be nuts tomorrow against State? I don't know, man. I can't. I don't know if it's going to be difficult tomorrow. Hi. Do you want me to sign your book? Thank you. Who you want me to make it out to?
Shelly, S-H-E-L-L-Y.
All right, hold on 1 second.
Yep, Bell. B-E-L-L-E.
B-E-L-L-E. Okay. What do you want me to say? How about them dogs? That'd be great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I came back just for this.
Awesome.
I bought this book yesterday and read the whole thing. Finished
Hopefully there weren't any typos.
Nah, not that I noticed.
Thanks for coming in. Where'd you come in from?
Well, I'm born and raised in Athens.
There you go.
Athenian.
There's not many of those left, are there? Sadly.
Can you do one more thing? For
Sure.
Me?
What do you need?
I really just want. I'm sorry, I got distracted for a
It's
second.
okay. It's fine. Take your time.
I just wanted to say something like about the book, like to a big Bulldog fan. Okay, thanks.
That cool? Thanks for coming in. Thank you. Good to see you. Everybody comes in sometimes to say hello. I'm sorry, y'all. Thank you for coming in. A true Athenian. There's not many of those anymore, sadly. Let's see here. I got some questions. Is Texas the best team in the SEC? The only undefeated ones there. Yeah, we're talking about the crowd. And look, they're playing Mississippi State. So it's not gonna be like if they're playing Alabama, LSU, Tennessee. The Tennessee game will be live. Part of that is that game will be really important for both those teams. You know, it may be an elimination game. I don't know. But that game will be an important game and moment in the season for both Georgia and Tennessee. I mean, they both.
Oh, you're right.
They probably both should still get in.
I'll go find
I don't know though, man. I'm not as sure anymore. That's a good question. I'm just looking at some of the comments. Thanks for coming into Red Zone. I'm seeing where Chief J. Bowen's saying that everybody's in here. Yeah, I wish I had more Stetson Bennett gear. Stetson's busy in Los Angeles. No, that was a limited run of Stetson stuff, the limited run with Keeley's stuff. We had a great opportunity. Keeley did that event here in the late fall of 2022. I'll tell you the story of that. We were up in Kentucky the night before, and it was freezing cold up there. And Keeley was one of the few guys that was made available after the game. And, you know, the next night we were talking about everything. And, you know, it still looked like Georgia was the best team in the country. But that night against Kentucky, they did not play well. And the reason why was because it was so cold. And I was talking to Stetson. You know, Kentucky has their post-game room is right off the field, and it's a pretty big room. And I don't know if I got in there before everybody else or not, but Stetson and I were just sitting there talking. And, you know, it's not the same, but we both use our hands during games. And he was trying to grip the ball. I think it was so cold that you could not. Thanks for coming in, y'all.
Thank you.
It was so cold that you could not, like, it was hard. Your extremities are the most difficult part. People say, well, why do you wear shorts to games, you know? Well, I don't want to rip up pants because you have to get on the ground all the time. But your hands get very cold in cold weather. So that night at Kentucky is probably the worst weather game I've ever been in. It didn't rain, but it was really bad. State was not great in 2022 either. It was pretty cold that night too. And the next day we had an event with Jeff Foxworthy in Atlanta, and we were just but anyway, we had to sprint back from Commonwealth. And the next day we had this great event here with Keeley, Scott Mindy, and everybody at Red Zone. It was an outstanding day, in 24 hours. And, of course, Georgia went on soon thereafter to win their second national championship in as many years. It doesn't feel like they're on the path to that right now, but I'm not sure who it feels like is on the path to do that either, to be honest with you. I would also say that in 22 and 23, both seasons, both years, this was the time that Georgia played their worst in the year. In 22, the way they played against Samford was not great. The way they played against Kent State was not great. The way they played against Missouri was, they had to snatch that one out. In 23, the way that they were at the beginning of the season, the Carolina game, the Auburn game, they just did not play well the first 4 games of the season in back-to-back years. Why is that? I don't know. But then the thing about Georgia is they have the capability, because they have players, they have the capability to really explode on you and really kind of get rolling quick. And we never saw that against Auburn because that game was such a slow burn. It was a slow burn. It is getting really crowded in here now. More crowded than it was, but folks are coming in and out. I don't know how many people are in here, but they're getting a chance to look at just quality stuff that you'll have for the rest of your life. These sweatshirts you'll have the rest of your life. I know that because I know how champion sweatshirts are made. This is really good looking sweatshirts. You can just try them on, check it out, see all that. It's also all online if y'all are in Valdosta or wherever and you can't come in. That's cool. But everybody who's in for the state game is checking some stuff out. It's a really exciting time in Athens whenever there's a fall football game. We are in we are at the time of the year where the games really matter, And we saw what happened last week with Alabama, the way that they just chose to just not play well. I think Vanderbilt had a lot to do with that. Here's a statement that is not inaccurate. Georgia has not started quick all year. Well, that's right. And, they've started quick defensively. I mean, with the exception of the Alabama game, Georgia's defense has been completely ready to ball out every single moment at the beginning of these games. And, these last 2 weeks with Bama and Auburn, you had an opportunity on both for opening drives to score touchdowns. Aaron Smith's got to catch that ball against Alabama. I mean, you just can't. He went right through his hands. This is insane. And, of course, this past week they did score a touchdown on the first drive. But they only got the ball 4 times in the first half. So, not an ideal, that you're just not getting the ball that much sometimes. And that's up to the defense. Defense has got to get off the field. So it's hand in hand. But so Georgia's offense this past week had the ball 4 times in the first half and scored 14 points. I have to say, that's fine. Because let's just say you have it, and that means typically in the second half you'll have it the game goes quicker typically when that happens in the first. But there are going to be teams, Auburn, Kentucky, there are going to be teams that are just going to say, we don't care, we're going to run the play clock. We don't care if we're going, our best chance to win this game is to grind the clock and make this a 1-score game either way. And it's good coaching. Auburn had a hard time scoring in that game. The touchdown was off of a poor tackling. Tackling's been an issue at Georgia for sure. That has been an issue for sure. You saw it at Kentucky first. They tackled against Clemson pretty well, but it's up to Kirby to get this right, y'all. I mean, it's his responsibility to get this right. It's up to him. Nothing that I say matters. So here's a question. I will try to answer it. With what was a deep offensive line to start the season and with all the problems seen then, how much do you think that injuries and moving and shifting up front attributes to the slow starts? So that's a good question because I think that touches on at least a little bit of it. When you are trying to bake a cake and you don't quite yet know all the ingredients, that's part of the slowdown here. You have to think about it. They've played 5 games. I don't think they've had – I wonder in the 5 games, and I could look, But I do not think they've had the same starting running back and all 5 offensive linemen at the beginning of any of these games. Maybe Kentucky, Tennessee Tech. But then, of course, Tate Ratledge was out of the game immediately against Kentucky in second quarter, first quarter, whatever it was. So they've not had consistency in the run game, and that matters for sure. No, they've certainly not played a complete game this year. There's no question about that. But I'm not sure anybody has, to be honest. Maybe Vanderbilt against Alabama, but they allowed 35 points, and that's not a complete game. I mean, I would say against Clemson, that was a pretty solid win. Now, was it a complete game? That's a good question. But that was a very good performance. It just took them 4 quarters, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just seeing here the offensive line. So the offensive line and running back was the same for Tennessee Tech and Kentucky. It has not been the same for any of the other 3 games. And, of course, as I said, the Kentucky game, Tate was out immediately. I don't know. Immediately might be a stretch, but it was in the first half. I think it was in the second quarter. But, yeah, I mean, like, if you look at, ETN has started the last 4 games, but so they've had 3 different lineups on the offensive line, and in that time they had so in the 5 games they've only twice of the 5 have they had the same offensive line and starting running back. So if you're wondering about it, then that's one thing, but it doesn't, after a while, like, it just kind of just doesn't matter. Like, you need to be able to gussy up and get your yards. I mean, you have to be able to run the ball effectively, and that, if you're not running the ball effectively, are you really Georgia? Now, ask yourself that question. Are you really Georgia if you're not effectively running the football? Particularly with ETN, I have to say. Frazier too, but Frazier's not been playing the way that ETN has. ETN's been out there for, at times, 20 snaps. 20 carries, 18 carries. 20 is probably inaccurate. I will now look up how many snaps he's got. I know he is the leading rusher, but that doesn't mean that he's been getting 20. Let me see here. So that's the thing. I do think it's there. Yeah, he's not had 20. He had 19 against Kentucky. He's not had a 100-yard game yet. I mean, he will have a 100-yard game. I mean, he played pretty well against Auburn, man. 23 for, what is that? Like 124. My rudimentary skill. Yeah, 124. Rudimentary mathematical skills from my DeKalb County education. He went 23 for 124 last week, touches. And that's pretty effective as a ball carrier / person, I guess you could say. I mean, I can't have a problem with that. The thing about it is that they're still, I would like to see Nate Frazier play more, but there's clearly a reason he's not. He went 11 for 83 against Clemson. He didn't play at all against Alabama. He played 3 snaps. He's played 3 carries against Kentucky. Not great, So against Auburn, he went 7 for 38. But he pops. But he's not. I mean, they're not holding him out. There's a reason they're holding him out. He's got to do what he's supposed to do in order to do that. I mean, it's on him to do whatever he's supposed to do to make himself available. This isn't like they're not holding him out on purpose. They want him to be great. Someone's saying hi for taking a picture at the Kentucky game. I do remember that. So yeah, it's not a problem at all. We're not here without y'all. I'll tell you that right now. No, I did not go to Lakeside. I see you're just trying to trigger me. I see what's happening. What do you think about DeKalb County? Yeah, Tucker. What do you think about the receiver after? Yeah, they're going to have to figure that out. With Landon Humphreys being out was not ideal. Dylan Bell's not had his day yet either. I would like to see Lovett and Bell. Lovett and Bell are very good. They're very good. I need to see the tight ends play a little bit more consistently. I mean, Lawson Lucky has had a great season so far. I think Oscar Delp I think Oscar's had a tough start to the season, but that does not mean that you can't have a great close this season. We've seen them play 5 games. That's it. And, when you think about the challenge that they've had a rivalry game against Auburn. They played a very good team. That's a top 10 team now in Clemson. You've got a game on the road against a top 10 Alabama, and then the knife fight that they had against Kentucky. They've had one basic easy game of 5. So 20% of their season. And everybody around here is understandably used to them just slaying people. And maybe that will come back. Maybe that comes back this week. I don't know. But we, I think, are at a moment in college football right now where it's just a fight right now. There's not a dominant team. And this is where I think if you're Kirby and Mike and Glenn, this is how we get to see how good a coach are these guys. Like how much can they develop this group from here on out? Because this is not just like they're just going to railroad everybody. They're going to have to go out and fight. And that's not always easy to do because the other guy's doing the same thing. So we're going to see how this develops over time. And this is a team that can win the national championship, but it's not playing like it right now. That's what they're like. Now, they can change my mind tomorrow. They can change my mind against the Horns. Same thing against the Gators in a couple of weeks. There's no question that there's plenty to be had there. You're still missing Smile Munden. You're missing 2 stars on the offensive line. You're missing Smile Munden. The injuries have been a challenge for Georgia. You had Michael Williams. That was not up to 100% at all against Alabama, that's for sure. But it's not been ideal on that front. I do want to touch on this. Why do top high school receivers not have Georgia on their short list? I don't know, because when you look at George Pickens, Ladd, certainly even Jermaine Burton, A.D. Mitchell, there's been a lot of NFL wide receivers that have played at Georgia lately. So that maybe it's been the transition or the turnover at wide receiver coach. I don't know, but there's no schools maybe it's schools that are as productive at catching the ball and being NFL guys. I'm not sure there's been many that have been better. There's probably Ohio State, probably. After that, I don't know. Here's a question. Do you think Kirby has lost some passion over the last few years? I feel like he might have. Nope. I don't. I think that no. The short answer is no. I think that it's a different time. I think he's really having a coach right now. And I think that's not as easy as it looks. And I think when you're starting to talk about buy-in from 120-ish guys, a staff that really is like 50, 60 people. I mean, you're talking about an organization that's basically 200 people, maybe 250 with all of the, trainers and health and so forth. That's a lot of folks to lead. And it's going to be tricky to do that when you're not just sawing through everybody and the results aren't obvious, I mean, they beat Clemson pretty solidly, and then they just total knife fight at Kentucky, got way down against Alabama. It's just been a challenging start to the season, and yet, if you win these next 2 games, particularly, there will be no team that is more accomplished and been more tested than Georgia, but they got to go win the games. So I don't think he's lost passion at all. And I'm not dismissing your question, but when you see, listen, Kirby is very passionate about what he does. There's no question about that. Sometimes it's a little bit much, but there's no doubt that he cares about what he's doing. And that's important when you have the expectation and the challenges that he has. They're just not as good as they were last year. They're not as good as they were in 22. They're not as good as they were in 21. Here's the thing. Nobody else is. A. B. The season is a very long one in ways that it has not been in the past. It will make for a very challenging build. In basketball, you have to build towards the end of the season. You've sort of had to do that, but like, it's really important now. Like, it's particularly important. So that will be the part that's going to be hard for them is can you continue to develop guys that you're going to need to play? Drew Bobo started a week ago. If you had that on your bingo card to start the year, you probably thought something went really wrong. And nothing went wrong. He had to be ready, and he was, to be honest with you. So I talked about this a minute ago, and I'll talk about it because I realize everybody's not sitting here listening to me talk. Downtown at Red Zone, everybody's coming in. The smiles are tremendous. Everybody's having a very good fall in Athens. Fall Friday in Athens.
You know what? I timed it out just right.
Yeah, we got everybody walking in and going out. It's great. Do you think the criticism of fans was helpful? Do you think, talking about Kirby Smart, do you think that they will let the cowbell in the stadium? That's a good question. I didn't see that. I don't think they can stop that, from my understanding. It is permissible at state, so I don't think it's impermissible here. It is an artificial noisemaker. I don't know why there's different rules for different schools with different stuff, but whatever. It will be irrelevant. It's really not that. It's not hard to deal with at Scott Field or Davis Wade, whatever it's called. So I do think it will make a difference. I do think that he was right. I do think it's challenging when you are criticizing your fan base. I think that when they're the ones responsible for your well-being, your wealth and well-being, that's where the money's coming from. It's you have to handle that the right way. I think I was on the field. I'm on the field for all the games. Saturday was against Auburn was not great. It was not great. I didn't think it was terrible. It just wasn't great, and there's a lot of reasons for that I went over. I would never have a homecoming game against Auburn. That makes no sense to me. I would never, it was unseasonably warm. It wasn't hot. It was 82 degrees. The sun was a problem. And it was a boring game against a team that they've won now 17 of the last 20 games against. The students don't understand Auburn. They don't understand Georgia Tech probably either. They've never seen Georgia lose to these guys. They've seen it once in their lifetime, and they were probably 10. So the passion's not there. They're not. That's what's happened. Is that the winning has really hurt them on a lot of different levels in terms of telling fans all the time, hey, you got to be ready, you got to be up. Fans don't. They got feelings too, and if they don't want to sit there through a game, they're not going to, and they didn't. And it felt like Georgia had that game in control the whole time, which I think they did. But I think he was right. I'm surprised that he said that. I was surprised to say it. Someone's asked me a question about practice. He's not let us into practice since 2019. So COVID kind of ended all that. I don't think it would hurt us to let us in practice, but whatever. Have you been to a game at Texas? And you think that atmosphere will... I don't know. I've not been up there yet. Over there yet, I should say. I would be shocked if it were better than Death Valley, which it won't be. And I was in Tuscaloosa the other day, and it was fine. It was not LSU, it was not Auburn, it was not Tennessee. I think Alabama does a okay job with their in-game stuff. I think it can be much nuttier at Georgia, but it wasn't Saturday. There are certain schools that do an exceptional job at creating environment. Auburn does a great job. LSU, South Carolina, those three in particular, and then just the pure volume of Tennessee is a lot. And Tennessee has artificial noisemakers on the field. They have speakers. They have 10 speakers on the field, or at least they have the last few times Georgia's played there. So that's what that's like. But if Texas is everything that I know them to be, they're not dissimilar from a Georgia crowd. They're kind of wine and cheese-ish, or wine and cheese adjacent, I should say. So North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, these are all crowds that are not necessarily sort of frightening places to play, but they can be, and I've seen Samford be absolutely insane. So sometimes it depends on the situation. Situationally, what are things like? But the fans got something to say about this weekend, and they'll say it. But it's a different crowd. A homecoming crowd is not a normal crowd. It's just not. And you think, oh well, it was a full state. Yeah, it was full of people that are not usually at games. It was not a typical game. So no, it was not at all like a normal game in that sense. But I do think there were a lot of variables and factors that made that the case. But we'll see with Texas. But it's so hard to impress me. I mean, I've been doing this for so long now that, like, I almost have to be in fear for my life on the field to be impressed with a place. So we're talking LSU and maybe South Carolina, or Auburn. Those three are the hardest. Some of it's just logistically the way the stadiums are. When you look at Carolina, Williams-Brice, the way the stands are structured, they're right on you. Like Tech. Tech does a really good job, actually. It's just there's no Tech fans there. That's the problem. So if Tech actually packed it out, Mark Richt Field would be a very difficult place to play. But it's always Georgia people. So, but Tech, I think, does a really good job of creating atmosphere. But Texas is going to have to do a lot of stuff that, just no offense at all intended or anything. This is not going to be something Georgia's never seen before. I mean, they played in front of 100,000 people. They just did that earlier this month, or they did this, the last week. I mean, it's just not a big deal. It's challenging, but it's not like they're playing. It's not like 300,000 people are at the game and you literally cannot communicate to the person next to you. That's not what it is. So, what will Texas be like? I mean, I'll let y'all know. But it's just not. I mean. They play their biggest rival on the in another state every single year, and they bring 40,000 fans. They just had 60,000 people in Atlanta at a neutral site against another team that is a big game. They play at Auburn every other year. They play at Tennessee every other year. They used to play at South Carolina every other year. A crowd, unless people are throwing red meat on the field, or in the situation of like a Kentucky in 2006 when they stormed the field when they beat Georgia, it's not it's not that big of a deal. Like the noise is, once you can't hear, you can't hear. So if there's a bunch of people from Houston in the stands, that's great. I mean, but unless it's completely wild, I just don't. It's not gonna. I mean, Tiger Stadium, Death Valley is a frightening place to be. That is, you do not want any part of that at night. It is nuts. I mean, there's stuff where grandmas are. It's some embarrassing stuff that goes on there. It's a scary place to play. Now let's see. Yeah, I mean, the Georgia game is going to be on SEC Network. We're going to see Georgia and State kick off at 4:15. So that's on cable. You could probably watch it streaming on ESPN Plus, or however you stream, whatever you want to call it. And so that's one way to do it. If you have cable, it would be on SEC Network, which is in Athens. It's channel. Oh my God, I can't remember. Sorry, but it'll pop up and it'll replay the whole week too. But are we going to see run game from Georgia that is more productive? Are we going to see, are we going to see a discrepancy of about 150 yards in run game? Because that's what it should be tomorrow. You would think that Georgia should effectively be able to run against State, because State is not. They're not good at that. They're not good at stopping the run, and their focus is throwing it. So, can Georgia have a discrepancy of 150 yards in run game? Because if they do, you're kind of getting where you'd like to go. I mean, Georgia right now is only rushing for 131 yards a game. That's not who they are. And State on the other hand is going for 91. And it just it should be Georgia really should try to distance that part out. It could shorten the game too, which may be an ideal situation for the Dogs, but we'll just see. We're downtown at Red Zone in Athens. I am going to go to the volleyball match tonight against South Carolina. Just see that should be fascinating, to be honest with you. The volleyball girls, they need a win. I think they're 0-3 in the league, or 0-4, whatever it is. So it's time to. And Carolina's pretty good, so it's going to be a challenging situation for Georgia. And for the record, too, I mean, Mississippi State's not going to care about coming to Athens. They play in front of 90,000 people all the time. And they just played in front of Texas, 100,000. Georgia will be 93,000. They're going to play at Tennessee, 100,000+. They're if you as a competitor are having a problem with, if you are having a problem playing in front of crowds, it's probably not the sport for you, and it's certainly not the league for you. Now, with that said, when you go play at Vanderbilt and there's nobody there, that's that's weirder, frankly, because it's quiet all the time. And you're like, what's going on here that it's so quiet? So every place in the league has its own weird stuff. We try to tell people how challenging it is to play at Commonwealth, and they never listen. But I would say particularly games at night at Commonwealth are really challenging, tough places to play, and they just are. Kentucky's style right now doesn't help with things, but it's yeah. And then I would say LSU's the hardest. I would say Auburn does the best job. I would say South Carolina, if you let them get on top of you, you could have a long day. Those three particularly are tough. Tennessee, just in terms of pure volume, very hard, very hard. And so that's what Kirby wants, is the difference between 2nd and 8 and 2nd and 13 is a punt. The likelihood that someone is going to convert 2nd and 13 into a first down is about 15-20% at best. I don't even think it's that high. So you're going to want to do all you can do. As a crowd, you have a choice. You can either be entertained or you can be a part of the atmosphere. And you can actually be entertained and be a part of the atmosphere. But if you're just there to be entertained, you're not doing your part for your team. So there's that. But I don't know what to expect tomorrow, because you're talking about a situation where nobody here cares about Mississippi State. This is one of those games that you have to play every whatever years, 8 years, 10 years, and nobody cares about it. It's just not a game that people are going to think about. But can they get up and scream and yell? Maybe, yeah. But it's up to the team too. I mean, you make plays, people will cheer and be loud. And the defense was fine the other day. Here's a question about Branson Robinson. I think how can you get Branson Robinson going? I think he is a particular type of back. And I think that because of Branson's style, it's not always conducive to the way that Georgia plays. But he is a really good back, and he has to make the most of the carries that he has. And when you look at him, let me see here. We're downtown in Athens at Red Zone here at Georgia. Let me see Branson, because Branson scored 2 touchdowns in the national championship game. He scored, what's going on here? He scored, Branson's been a good back for Georgia, but it's not been there a lot this year. He's got 22 carries for 61 yards, not even 3 yards a carry. I don't know. Let's not forget that it's not that long ago that he came back from a knee injury. I mean, it's great that he's out there, but it might take him a little bit longer to be the way that he has been in the past than people want. These guys are still humans. They're not superhumans. And just watching some of this Auburn game here. Dylan Bell with a big long run there. It's tough. It's challenging to come back from injury, and I never had a catastrophic injury, so I don't know what that's like. But I can tell you, it sure does look not like a lot of fun. If you make the playlist for Georgia, no, I don't think the music's the issue, Mitchell. I think that there's. I think when you. The challenge, y'all, when you're talking about a game usually lasts 3 hours 15, 3 hours 30 minutes. So you're trying to really, for 4 hours basically, the 30 minutes lead up as well as the entire game, you're trying to create atmosphere at a place that naturally has breaks and a place that things can go against you. That's really not always the easiest thing on earth to do, to be honest. And I think that the band, I think, helps. Honestly, I think the music selection. I mean, someone's always going to have a problem with the music. I would never play country music ever, but they did last week, and it was fine. So it's because when you play music, someone's not going to like it, so you can't really worry about that. What will get? I would start with what gets the students going, because whatever gets the students going will get the stadium going, and I would start from there, and then leave it up to the team. But there's you can create atmosphere, for sure. Branson reminds me of Ron Haynes. They need to get him his passes out of the backfield like a wrecking ball. I think Branson's. These are long seasons, and they're going to need him at some point. And they're going to need, he's not their only back. I mean, they're going to need Nate Frazier, Etienne, Branson, Roderick, Cash Jones. Those guys are all going to be important. They all are going to matter at some point in this season, if they haven't already. Yeah, Georgia. Well, Texas. We're going to see what the Texas game line is after this weekend. Right now, it's anywhere from 2 to 2.5 as Texas. So Georgia will be an underdog for the first time since the Alabama game in 2020. And as this person's pointing out, it is hard. You can't have a crowd nuts for 4 straight hours. They won't last for 4 straight hours. So there is an ebb and flow to things, and if you run a club, people have to go get drinks and they have to go to the bathroom. And so there's a way to do this. But long story short is, all Kirby Smart is asking, and I don't think it's inappropriate for the record, all he's asking is, when we need the crowd, we need the crowd. And I'm like, yeah, dude, you're right. I mean, it's not that hard to ask. And some of that is, inflection in the PA. I think the PA guy does a good job. I don't remember his name, but I think he does a good job. And you just get off the field on 3rd downs too. I mean, stuff it all adds up. It all adds up for you or against you. It's either way it can add up for or against you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with someone, a former player, a head coach, a person who cares about the institution saying, hey, y'all, it's not good enough right now. That's all I did. And listen, I'm not here to take up for Kirby Smart. There's other people in the media that do that all the time. That's not my job. My job is to have an honest dialogue with the audience that chooses to watch. And, there's other people that will be sycophants for Kirby, and that's fine. That's good for them. That's just not us. And I thought the crowd was not good, and I think that it can be better. Now, will it be better this week? I mean, I really don't know. I don't know why you'd really care about this game if you're a fan. Yeah, Darth Flyer, which is a curious name, talks about the energy of the team. I'm not sure I can tell about that. It's harder for me to see from my perspective. I know when guys are getting 15-yard runs, yeah, everybody's going to get hyped up for sure. And in terms of the discussion about the Tennessee game being louder, there's no question that will become, because I'm trying to think. I mean, it's not like Tennessee's had a lot of success against Georgia either, to be honest with you. They beat Georgia in 16. Is that it? Lately? 16, 15 up there. 16, 15. And then 14 Georgia won, 13 Georgia won, 12, 11 Georgia won, 10 Georgia won. So, in the last however many 15 seasons, Georgia's lost to them twice. So, I don't know. Do you think Georgia would move up to number one with a win over Texas, with a big win over Texas? Maybe. It's a good question, because Ohio State, Oregon, the winner of that game will have a legitimate claim to number one. I don't know if I think if you're talking about Georgia at that stage, they would have, in theory, win over top 10 Clemson, win over top 10 Texas, lost to top 10 Alabama. Ohio State would have win over top 10 Oregon. Same thing with Oregon over Ohio State. So Georgia's had a Georgia's had a season. I can feel they've had a season already. Now everybody else maybe not, but I mean, they could have lost to Clemson. They could have lost to Kentucky. They could have lost to Alabama. They could have lost to, they had games that were, rivalry game. They've already had a rivalry game. They played on the road, top 10, top 5. They played a top 10, and they went on the road and fight with Kentucky. They've had a challenging schedule already. Who has the nicest and not so nicest in the league? The nicest stadium is Georgia. Probably, in the grand scheme of things, what's the easiest place to deal with is Georgia. Tennessee and Death Valley are rough, like not nice. Like, there's different color orange for Tennessee in different parts of the stadium. There are overlays where your vantage point for the stadium, for the field, is like this. That's your seat. So different places. South Carolina's done a much better job. Kentucky's done a much better job. Vanderbilt Stadium is probably about to be very nice, but those three used to be straight up trash. I think Auburn's okay, but again, and I'll lecture for a moment here, if you will. People come to school to Georgia. Their grandfathers brought them here. They grew up watching. They listen to Larry Munson. And Georgia's their team. Grew up in Hahira, Augusta, Hespava, Hiwassee, wherever, Hiram. They don't know how nice it is here because they don't go to the other places. Well, I do. And I've been to Auburn. I've been to Alabama. I've been to Tennessee, Kentucky, State, Ole Miss. Arkansas is actually probably a lot nicer than people realize. Arkansas is nice. Now, Missouri's pretty nice too in its way. Okay? But if you're asking me who has the nicest, you can hear people don't realize. I'm telling you, Josh Kendall used to cover Georgia. He covers the Falcons now, and he covered Carolina for 8 years, and like a year or two into it, we were just talking, and he said, people don't realize how nice Georgia is. Think about this, man. Think about this. If you've been to Auburn or Ole Miss, you've been to the two other college towns that are in the SEC. Well, Auburn, Ole Miss, that's really it. Knoxville, Nashville, Columbia, Missouri. Columbia, Missouri is the problem with Columbia, Missouri is you got to get out there, which means you got to fly out there and you got to drive 2 hours from either St. Louis or Kansas City. We're not fans of Missouri. So when you, like, Baton Rouge is the state capital. Columbia, South Carolina, state capital. Nashville, major city, state capital. Knoxville, it's a city. It's not a town. Lexington, Kentucky, massively underrated. Great place. It's one of the best places. Just tough to get up there. So when people ask, you know, y'all don't know how nice you've got it here. You've got the best downtown for college, perhaps outside of Austin, Texas. And Austin's a city. It's a state capital. I've been to Austin before. It's traffic and like it's got an interstate. Georgia doesn't have an interstate. So, you know, if you want to go, you know, if you want to go just drink, you can just go just drink. If you want to shop, you can come down here and shop. If you want to walk through, you have no idea how nice it is here. You know, Clemson is a college town. Clemson doesn't have half the stuff Athens does. It's not even close. You go to Columbia, South Carolina, and see what it's like. No. But if you understand, if you're a South Carolina person, and I know many of them, okay, and you understand that Columbia is a dump, and you like need a tetanus shot before you go. If you get all that and you just accept it for what it is, it's all good, man. Then you can just go have fun. Like, you can't compare. You know, I've never been to Florida in Jacksonville. Gainesville. Jacksonville, not great. But people here don't know how nice it is here. I mean, it's easy to get into Sanford now. It's easy to get into Sanford Stadium. It really is. You know, the bridge, they've made everything nicer here, man. Everything. And so when you can shop and eat and walk, you got to get in a car to go to Columbia. And go to Williams-Brice. Auburn is a train wreck. You can't get out. It takes you 3 hours to get out of Clemson if the game is after 3 o'clock. You can forget it. You're going to be in a parking lot. Auburn's very similar. Tuscaloosa, not impressed. Never have been. It's just so not great. So people love the trip to Vanderbilt, to Nashville, and all this stuff. Nashville's great, whatever, but I mean, it's got some of the worst traffic I've ever seen in my life. It is awful at times. Yeah. So the question about LSU and Ole Miss, we talked about this earlier. I really don't know. You would expect Ole Miss to win that game. I think I picked LSU. I don't trust LSU. They do. LSU is not to be trusted at any moment. So there's that. You've not been to Athens. Darth has not been to Athens yet. Well, when you come, you're going to come to hang out at Red Zone here with Scott and Mindy. Come straight in, see their selection. It's awesome. Got a lot of national championship flags, several sweatshirts, which we're getting to that point in the year, maybe even today. But, you know, you can eat. I'm just going to tell you, you know, you come downtown to Athens, you can eat at the Place, South. I mean, if you want Chick-fil-A, you can do that. You want Euro, you can do that. If you want, like, Pita Pit, you can do that. If you want to just go to, you know, Nowhere Bar, if you want to go to Magnolia, if you want to go to Blue Sky, if you want to go to Paloma, if you want to go to... I mean, you can go to Paloma tomorrow. No, this is not an endorsement. You can go to Paloma tomorrow and watch the game with 800 people, eat, drink, be merry. And you can't, I mean, there's not, stuff like this is not common around the rest of the SEC. So people don't know how good it is. And then you can just walk to the game. You know, and in Sanford, there's stuff, because I know it so well, there's stuff that could be better. There's bottlenecks around the corners of Sanford by East Campus. So, but I don't know what Georgia can do about that just because of the way the structure is. I'm not sure what they could do. But so you get that, and we see the bowels of every stadium. Like, we see the underneath, man. Sometimes it's not too pretty. But I think this is really Lexington, Kentucky is probably the least appreciated. And then you've got Missouri is pretty, I would say Missouri is pretty nice too. Nice. You know, Vanderbilt is a great campus. It just blends in with everything else there, and you're not thinking about the campus. But you know, tomorrow, and I've been to State is not. You don't bother. It's like a no. Just don't bother. Everybody gets hyped up about Ole Miss and all this stuff, and I think it's the most overrated place in the SEC by a lot. Ole Miss, overrated by a lot. But Tennessee and LSU got a lot in common. Two really old, decrepit, falling down stadiums that are frightening to go into, fans that are psychopaths, and they do a really good job at both those places of creating home field. So, but I mean, LSU, if you've never been to LSU for a game, do not miss. It is great. But here, I think what Kirby was getting at a week ago is, hey, we need some help. We need some help. We're playing at home. Give us some help. That's all he's saying. And he's right. I mean, if the whole point is to create home field, then create home field. And you can't do that without fans because you can't do artificial during plays. There's a point where artificial noise has to stop according to the rules of the sport. So that's why it's so important to have fan interaction. Don't just be entertained. Go and have fun. And the other thing is too, unlike when I was a child, there's a lot more selection, not just at Georgia in terms of inside the stadium, but there's a lot more selection of thanks for coming in for what to eat, what to drink. It's not just people walking around with scantily iced drinks in 1985, when Georgia's playing Temple or somebody. It's a better situation than it was back then in terms of what you can go eat, pretzels or whatever. So it's not just peanuts, pretzels, and hot dogs anymore. You can get all sorts of things. So I think people here don't know how good they've got it. But I think with that said, everybody's made their place nicer. Neyland is nicer than it was, which is really saying something. Commonwealth is definitely nicer. Vanderbilt is basically blowing their stadium up and starting over. South Carolina is nicer. Carolina dumped a lot of money in. You can tell around the stadium. It's much nicer than it used to be. Auburn's done a really good job around the stadium. They've done brand new baseball, brand new basketball. Ole Miss, brand new basketball. So there's a lot of everywhere in the league. You can see the money is being spent for sure, not just on coaches, but everywhere. So, but I really don't. I think when you're growing up and you go to these games and you're only used to what you're used to. I'll put it to you this way: there's a friend of mine who covered. He covers a lot of different stuff. And I asked him about golf one time. And he said, "You want to know about golf?" He said, "I'll tell you this." He goes, "The first place I ever went, my first golf experience was the Masters. That's what I had. That was my first experience. So nothing compares to that." And I wouldn't say nothing compares to here, but there has to be a realization that this is not Columbia, South Carolina, and it ain't Auburn. And it's certainly not Tuscaloosa. And Knoxville's actually, I have to say, not that bad. I think people run it down more than it deserves. So, but if people tell you Athens is a dump, they're idiots. They really you just walk away from them. They have no idea what they're talking about. In terms of going to A&M, I've not heard good things about Texas A&M either. But I've never been to College Station, so I couldn't say. But I, for a long time, did not hear good things. But I don't know. It could be different now than it was in the early 90s. I'm not sure. But here, Athens has basically been the way that it's been for a long time. One of the good things about Red Zone, it's not a corporate outfit. It's not Walmart, right? So there has been more of that downtown, which I'm not necessarily a giant fan of. But it is what it is, and there's nothing you can do about that. I didn't even mention the grill. So there's a zillion places. I have been to Austin. So Austin is like a super, it would be like 6 Athens combined, and so Austin. I was cool with Austin, man. I thought it was okay. It's just a lot bigger than Athens. Austin is not a college town. Austin is a college city. I mean, Austin itself is, Texas is there and the state capital is there. Like, you do have these combinations in some situations where, like Fayetteville, Arkansas, that's a college town. It's got a lot of stuff there, but Little Rock, that's the capital of Arkansas, right? I mean, so you've got, well, I might be wrong about that, but I'm going to look it up now, but I'm almost certain it's Little Rock. Yeah, I am certain it's Little Rock. So you have these situations where different, like Columbia, South Carolina, Carolina is the biggest deal in town, but the state capital is there. It's the second largest or the largest city. It's the most important city in South Carolina. Same thing with, Nashville. Nobody thinks about Vanderbilt in Nashville. They get outdrawn by Tennessee in Nashville. You don't get that here. I mean, Athens is a Georgia town, Georgia place, all that. And we're going to see the Dogs play Mississippi State tomorrow. So the grill is old school. The grill is old school. It's been around since I was a small child, and we used to eat there all the time. And there's just a lot of old school still left in Athens, believe me. And there's nothing wrong with new school either. So there's plenty of both. But I want to see tomorrow is Georgia going to effectively run the ball? Are they going to stop the run? Those two things are the most important things. If they do that, they certainly should be able to run it, I would imagine. If they do that, then there's some positivity moving in that direction. There's not really that much to be upset about right now. I mean, I'm just full disclosure. Even if they go and lose at Texas, it depends on how they lose. That's not exactly two bad losses. The Globe is open, yes. I have not been to Norman, but I've been told good things about Norman. I have been to Oklahoma City, and it was not great. It was not great. Now, that was in the 90s, but it was not great. So, but I had a good friend of mine that covered Oklahoma for a long time, lived in Oklahoma City, and he said it's as close to the South as you get in that part of the country. I mean, you got to remember, like, Oklahoma's not the South. Norman kind of is, but it's not like, Oklahoma is not a beautiful state. There's a lot of not beautiful in Oklahoma. Do you want to get on the screen? I've got two little girls who are really excited about the telecast, the broadcast. I don't know what to call this anymore. But we're going to see y'all. Make sure that you're signing up for our newsletter. Make sure that you are checking out Red Zone. Scott and Mindy have done a lot for me and Dog Post, and I'm very thankful for that. And, it's just honestly, this is where I would come shop, just being honest. And this is where a lot of people are coming to come shop right now. I mean, they're pouring in here, and there's reasons why. I mean, all you have to do is look at the array of things. They do have a few of the books left. If you're looking for dog instruction, they've got that. This is a classic. This is the first book I ever read. Not the last. And then, of course, they have Double Dogs, which is it's right there. When I took that image, thank God for mirrorless cameras. When I took that image, I thought that could be the image of if this team goes all the way. We didn't know. We weren't sure because of with what was happening with Ohio State. We didn't get a great cover photo of Ohio State. So there's the back of these. Bye, y'all. There's another one. These are open. This is the only place you can get these, by the way, besides online, is here at Red Zone. There's Keeley making that play. When I showed him that picture, he was kind of fascinated by it. They did a really good job. They Georgia, you're not going to get these images elsewhere, for the record, because we go. Trust me when I tell you, we go through a very extended effort to get these pictures, elevated shots of Stetson and company, and maybe there will be a book this year. We don't know. Maybe there will be a book this year. I'm not certain, but if there is, we will be there to document it. If there is, this book, I will plug this real quick too. Double Dogs is worth the money alone just for this story about Ohio State. I've never published it online, but it is the behind-the-scenes look at that game. It took me about 3 days to write. No, it took me about 5 days to write, to be honest with you. It was Christopher Smith knocking off helmets. If you've not gotten it, you really should check it out. It's a great book, if I do say so myself. The last, it's not that last, but the last legitimate team to win a national championship undefeated were the Georgia Bulldogs, and that's talking about all of that in there. Go ahead, you can grab some stuff. Yeah, there's so much to get here. I should spotlight more of it, but make sure you're dropping down to Red Zone when you come downtown. It's going to be great weather tomorrow. Make sure you remember how awesome it is to be in these moments. You know, there's not a lot of time that you should appreciate what you've got, and what if you're watching this, you've got a great town, a great. He's got these guys here too. I was just grabbing it because it's close and local. You've got a great downtown. You've got a great stadium. You have the best football program in the country. Something people really care about a lot. Make sure that you are taking advantage of these days because they don't last forever. They do not last forever. All right, I'm going to sign off. It's been a good 2 hours with you all here at Red Zone. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the website.